On the song 444, the rapper Jay-Z says of his girlfriend at the time, Beyonce, well, actually, she was his wife at the time, but he talks about before they were married, when he was courting her, if you could even call it that. He says, instead of telling you, be mine, or maybe asking you to be mine, Jay-Z says, what I said to you was, don't embarrass me. And he's kind of looking back, regretting that that's the way he presented the the opportunity to be together to Beyonce. Now, you would think, as dope as Beyonce is, as fine as she is, as talented as she is, as successful and accomplished as she is, as much potential as she had, whatever she had going for her, you would imagine that Jay-Z would have had some better game to give. He says, I didn't even say be mine or will you be mine. What I said to you was, don't embarrass me. That's a odd and strange and arrogant and insulting way to pitch the idea of relationship to someone. Hey, you gonna be around me? Just make sure you don't embarrass me. As crazy as that is, imagine if he had done the sort of the opposite. Imagine if he had come to Beyonce and said, hey, I'm gonna embarrass you, but don't you dare be embarrassed by me. Like, it's crazy to say, don't embarrass me. I think it's 10 times crazier to tell somebody, hey, I'm gonna be embarrassing you, but but you better not be embarrassed by me. And this is what the God of the Bible, if you believe that Jesus is the God of the Bible, actually does. And we're going to dive into that today. But before we do any of that, what's up? My name is Be Good. This is Ichabod. And we are doing call-ins today. I dropped the link to call in up top in the chat. But before we get to any of that, come on into the chat and greet somebody in Reason's name. What's happening, folks? So good to see you all. Daryl Williams in the chat with the salutations. And True Gold, what's up? Good to see you. Says, what up, B? Who else we got in the chat? My Unique Monique, what's happening? Says, welcome. Oh, she says, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome in Reason's name. And shout out to Nawe, the floating cloud up above my head, who sits high but condescends, like all great clouds do, to be with us here today. We'll talk more about Nawe in a little bit. But yes, come on in and let's get ready to talk about it. In the meantime, I want to give a shout out to all of the Patreon supporters. If your name is on the screen, guess where else your name is? Right here in my heart. Thank you all for standing with the channel and rocking with Ichabod so that we could bring this content to folks. Thank you for spreading the word. Maybe grab the link and share it with somebody. The link to join the Patreon is in the chat. And it's also in the description of the video. So you can do that there. If you're on Instagram, you want to call in, the link is in my bio. You cannot use the link if you copied it and pasted it before. There's a new link every time I go live. And speaking of links, let me go to Facebook and post the link there just so that they can get on the same page with us all too. And we're going to get ready to dive in. Hope I copied it. Yes. All right. There we go. Why can't I pin it? Uh-oh. There we go. All right. So let's see. Anybody else pop into the chat? As Noon Speaks says, what up? What up? Good to see you. Yes, yes. So good news. I did we still are rocking with StreamYard. I canceled StreamYard last week because it looked like they were not going to offer me the little rigged up deal that I had where I sort of threatened like I was going to cancel, and then they were like, "Oh no, don't cancel. We'll give you a reduced rate." I canceled it, and I was actually looking at I think it's Riverside today. I was about to stream on Riverside, and I'm like, their prices are not too much less than what StreamYard is charging. Went back to StreamYard, started messing around and find out I could do some cool things in StreamYard. So decided to go with it. And to my surprise, I actually did get a first year sort of a discount for the first year. Um, and then it'll jump up to the regular price next year. So maybe I'll have to do the, the little scam again next year if I put a note in my calendar to remind me to do that. But so we are rocking with StreamYard. We're good to go. Yeah, but Jay said to B, yo, don't embarrass me. She was okay with that. She was like, all right, cool, I won't. Of course, he ended up embarrassing her by cheating on her, and that's why they did the whole Lemonade and 444 albums. But like I said, imagine if the pitch was, imagine somebody came to you and said, hey, be with me, but just know I'm going to embarrass you. And you better not be ashamed when I start embarrassing you. You better stick with me regardless of what I do to you. That is what the God of the Bible actually does if you let the biographers of Jesus tell it. They put words in Jesus's mouth. Jesus, maybe he did say it. I highly doubt it, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But they put these words in Jesus's mouth. Jesus says to those who are following him, somebody just put something in the chat that I need to look at. They said, Riverside is much more robust with built-in editing. I recommend it. Yeah, well, I don't do a lot of editing because I do these live shows. But who knows? We'll see. I'd like to hear more about that. But yeah, Jesus supposedly says to those who are following him, if you are ashamed of me in front of people, just know I'm going to be ashamed of you in front of my Father. Which means somebody had to have known that there is going to be cause for shame. There's going to be a reason why you really should be ashamed, but you can't afford to, because the cost of you being ashamed is when the day comes, if it ever comes, and you're standing before the Father, and Jesus is there, and Jesus is going to remember that time you were ashamed of me? Two can play that game. I'm ashamed of you. No, I don't know him. Which is so, this just hit me. Remember when Jesus supposedly also said, there are many who are going to say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, didn't I in your name? And what is Jesus going to say to them? Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you. What if Jesus is, I never knew you? What if that is the fulfillment of the other thing he supposedly said, which is, if you're ever ashamed of me in front of people, just know I'm going to be ashamed of you in front of my Father. What if that's Jesus's like he really, like you really were down with him, but you had this one moment where you were ashamed, and he's so petty. This is how you know people wrote the Bible. Jesus is so petty on the pens of the people that are putting words in his mouth that if you were ashamed of him before people, he's going to give you tit for tat. And now he's not going to be understanding. He's not going to be like, I get it. I was invisible. I was inaudible. I had ascended into the heavens. I left you here. I mean, he's not going to be understanding. He's going to say, two can play at that game. And if you were embarrassed about me, just know I'm going to act like I don't know you in front of my Father. So the depart from me, I never knew you. It's sort of like a built-in admission that Jesus said, it's not that I never knew you, it's that I'm going to be ashamed of you before my Father. I'm going to find some kind of reason to play you to the left the same way you played me to the left. It's almost like he's admitting he's going to lie. Like, what does it mean for Jesus to be ashamed of you before the Father? Have you ever stopped? And I didn't plan to say this. I'm just thinking on my feet here. Have you ever stopped to think about what it means for a Jesus who is God, right? Whatever that means, for him to be the same as the Father, but different. For Jesus, who's God, to have you there with him in front of the Father and then him be ashamed of you. What does it mean for him to be ashamed of you? What does that look like? Is it like no, I don't really, I mean, I know him, but I don't. I mean, we were cool, but we're not. What does it look like? What does it mean for Jesus to be ashamed of you? To me, it looks sort of like the other verse where he says, "Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you." Like, this is him trying to play you like you made him feel played. You cannot afford to be ashamed of him, because if you ever do, just know he's going to be ashamed of you before the Father. He's going to find some reason. He's going to make up some reason. He's going to do something that looks like him being ashamed of you before the Father. Well, all that means is he knows, like, you don't say, "Don't be ashamed of me," unless you know you're going to be putting somebody in a situation where they should be ashamed. Like, you don't have to say that if you don't plan on embarrassing them. You just rock out. If I'm taking a girl out and I know I haven't had my hair cut, or I ain't put on deodorant, or I'm wearing a mismatched outfit, and I say, "Hey, when we go out, just don't be embarrassed by me." Or when you see me, just don't act like you don't know me, because I'm gonna look a little wild today. If I don't have anything in my mind that would make me think she's going to be embarrassed, then I'm not going to say to her, "Hey, just don't be embarrassed." Either Jesus or his biographers must have had in mind, this shit is about to get embarrassing. Either Jesus said, "I better say something," or his biographers thought, "We better write something that warns people not to be embarrassed, because this is clearly going to be embarrassing. This is clearly going to be a cause for shame. So we've got to do something to shore it up against the shame that is rightfully going to come." What are we going to do? Oh, let's have him say, or Jesus actually said it, "Just know a day is coming where you're going to have reason to be embarrassed. But if you ever give in to that reason, just know I'm going to do you the same way you did me. If you're ever embarrassed by me, then I'm going to front on you too." What did Jesus or his biographers know that made them say, "I better put a warning in here," so that people, when they get tempted to be ashamed, they realize they can't, because the cost of that shame is too high? What did they know? That's what I want to talk about. And if you're a Christian, I would like to talk to you about whether or not Jesus is embarrassing. And I'm going to take full credit and full responsibility, because I know I am part of the reason why very many people today are not embarrassed to be Christians. The rap group that I was a part of in the mid to late 90s to the 2000s, I almost said I almost said the 20 aughts, but I don't rock with that phrase. The 2000s, the years between 2000 and 2009. The rap group that I was a part of, we were responsible for taking the stigma and the shame away from urban, and particularly when I say urban, I mean Black Christians. Now, typically in this country, whatever is cool in this country, it's typically cool because Black people made it cool. This goes all the way back to jazz and blues and rock and roll, funk, hip hop. Whatever is cool in this country, it's because African Americans have made it cool. And before the mid to late 90s, even though there was Christian rap, many of the Christian rappers in this country were not outspoken with their Christianity. Not that they needed to be or had to be, but when my group came on the scene, particularly because we came on the scene right around the time of Wu-Tang, Sons of Man, Nas, people who were 5%ers that taught that the Black man is God and the white man is the devil, and that Jesus was, I think it was Nas that says, "I'll resurrect the blonde hair and blue eyed and crucify him again." Or that was Black Thought. I think who said that. Nas said, "When it's my turn to go, I'll wait for God with the fofo." Like they were all dissing Jesus and Jesus followers. They saw it as this Eurocentric European idea. And then when my group came on the scene, the cross movement, we're the, should I say first? Because you had people like T-Bone. T-Bone was proud with his Christianity, and I think so were gospel gangsters and them. But we were the ones that made it like all of a sudden cool to be outspoken and out front and sticking your Christian flag in the ground and saying the name of Jesus repetitiously over and over again, making chants. If not Christ, who? If not now, when? If not Christ, who? If not now, when? Like we stepped out into the urban arena with our baggy jeans, boots, and a Bible, right? 3 B's, the baggies, the boots, and the Bible. We made it cool to be urban Christians. So when I see Christian rappers today, I don't know if, like whether they're in the Christian battle scene or not Christian, the battle rap scene or just the Christian rap contingent overall. Like I know for very many urban Christians, they don't feel like there's any shame in being a Christian. And that's particularly because groups like mine were responsible for, you know what, we're going to own what looks like should be our shame. And so others were like, wait, oh, we're coming outside of the 4 walls now and not tucking our Bibles, and we're not tucking our allegiance to Jesus, and we're actually saying it loud and proud. So had there not been the Christian rap movement that I was a part of, I think people would more easily see and sense the shame that should be attached to Christianity. But it was almost like we said, you know what, the thing that we should be ashamed of, we're going to own it. But all we were doing is we were following what the Bible actually said. There was this sense in which, because what is I think it's Corinthians where it says, God takes the foolish things of the world to confound the wise through the foolishness of preaching, right? And so we're like, yo, I know this looks foolish. I know this seems or sounds foolish, but we're going to say it so loud for so long, and not just loud and long, so creatively, because we were creative with the way we said it. It wasn't just that we were loud, we were creative. We had the wordplay. I had songs like, without Christ, it ain't spiritual. All it is a bunch of spirituals, right? So we were creative. And I think what we did, and I'm sort of, I don't know if I'm ashamed of this now, but when I think back, I'm like, yo, we helped remove the stigma that rightfully belongs to this religion. We made it something that you could be proud of. And so when I see Christian rappers today loud and proud, I'm like, damn, I did y'all a disservice. I made you think it was cool to be proud of something that really you should be embarrassed to be a Christian. And Jesus and or his biographers knew it. They knew that there was going to be shame attached to it. But why? This is what I want to talk about. If you're a believer out there, I would love to know from you. Matter of fact, in the chat, most of the folks who flock here, you were at one time a believer in Jesus. So in the chat, talk to me. Were you ashamed of your faith? Were you ashamed of your allegiance to Jesus, or were you proud? Were you loud and proud? And I'm also curious, if you were loud and proud, what did Christian pop culture help you to be loud and proud? Whether it was the Christian hip hop, the Christian rock, or like, if you were loud and proud, what helped you be loud and proud? Or are you willing to say, I was kind of embarrassed with mine? I just want to hear from y'all before I say anything else. All right. Without Faith says, I was embarrassed of what we call our church clothes. Okay. So if you had to put on certain clothes, and I'm so glad you said that. I wasn't even thinking about this, right? Because part of why we were not embarrassed was because we were like, yo, we're going to show y'all that you don't have to look like a cornball to be going into the church. So we went in Like I said, with the baggies and boots, we went in dressed a way people think you couldn't dress and be a Christian. But if you had the church clothes version of Christianity, then yeah, you probably did have some embarrassment. Let me see. All right, I'm waiting for some of y'all responses to come in. Take your time. I'm not going nowhere. Were you embarrassed to be a Christian, or were you loud and proud? And I don't think that the Christian hip hop or Christian rock or whatever, or pop culture is the only thing. I think if you really did believe it, because even before I was, so yeah, I'll be honest, even before I was doing Christian rap, I was in high school. I was in 11th grade, and I remember once it had got to the core of me, where I was believing the things that I was reading, like the God I'm reading about is real, is true. And if you're not on his side, you're basically playing yourself. Even before I started doing Christian rap, before I even knew it was a thing, I remember going into the high school being loud and proud about it. Is that true? I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I was loud and proud before Christian rap, because it sort of all coincided. When I started being vocal, I think I may have gotten vocal first, but then very shortly after, yeah, I don't know if I was loud and proud before the cultural connection fused of faith and culture for me. I got to think about that. But let me see what y'all said. Garland Garrett said, I was too young to know how I felt. Okay, I can understand that. Who is this? MJ Davis, what's going on? Says, I wasn't embarrassed of my faith, but I also wasn't loud with it. I did find Christian music corny, though, at least the stuff I heard. Okay, I get that for sure. Okay. It's Sage says, music did help motivate me to speak up more, but apologetics even more, or more confident. I get that entirely. Yes. Um, but think about that. Like as confidence, maybe even cocky, as loud as some of us began to be, what did Jesus and his uh followers or biographers, because I really think it's the biographers who put these words in his mouth, what did they know that made them say, people are going to have a reason to be embarrassed? Like at the beginning, I talked about Jay-Z. Why would Jay-Z say to Beyonce? He said, I didn't say be mine. I said, don't embarrass me. But why would he even say that? He had to have either seen something or been tipped off to something that made him say, she might embarrass me. And if you know anything about their relationship, you know she was very young when they got together, right? I think she was like in her early 20s, if not late teens, when they got together. So he's probably looking at her like, you're young. You don't have the wisdom that comes with age. And just her youth alone might have been enough to make him say, you might embarrass me. You might put our business out there. You might cheat on me. Whatever. Don't embarrass me. He had reason to think he needed to warn her. Well, in the same way, the New Testament writers who put the words in Jesus's mouth, if he didn't say it himself, they saw, this is going to get crazy. People, here's what I think. I think much of the warnings you see in the New Testament was not people being clairvoyant. It was not prophetic. It was not the Spirit of God telling them, hey, in the year 2026, there's going to be this big move towards deconversion and people might get tempted to, so warn them about a great falling away now. I don't think it had anything to do with the future. I think all of the warnings you see in the New Testament, including if they go out from us, they were never a part of us. All of the warnings you see in the New Testament was not about the future. It was because they saw those things happening back then. And they knew they had to do something to make it so that people were like, damn, I want to leave, but I can't because look, it was written that this, this is embarrassing. But look, here it says, if I'm ashamed of him before man, he'll be ashamed of me before the Father. It was happening in their own time. They saw people leaving. They saw people starting to doubt. They saw, why is everybody dying? Why are we all getting old? We thought this thing was about to pop off now. There's a rumor that this dude wasn't even supposed to die. Jesus said, if he remains until I return, but they're dying. People are dying. We better write something in to make it so that if people ever do get tempted, because people are getting tempted now, we got to shore this thing up. And so they begin to write passages in their holy letters, in the letters that became parts of the Bible, right? And these are the letters that got chosen because they proved to be useful because they had warnings that they knew, hey, in a couple of years, we're going to need this all the more. We got 20 people doubting and ready to leave now. We probably have more in another 2 years. Keep this letter. Why? Because it warns people about falling away. Well, that's exactly why it was written, because people were falling away then. If Jesus said any of this generation will not pass away until all these things, I think even that was cap. I think even that was, we got to do something to help the people who are here now feel like they should not lose hope. So let's let them know, hey, don't worry, this generation is going to see it. So we're going to put these words in Jesus's mouth, right? The generation that sees the temple get destroyed, that generation is also going to see Jesus return. So we got to write a story now where Jesus says that. They knew, because here's why I'm saying this. If it wasn't the biographers who put these words in Jesus's mouth, if it wasn't people who saw their friends and their loved ones and their Christian brethren beginning to doubt and lose faith, if it wasn't them sneaking these warnings into Jesus's mouth, then that makes it worse, because that means Jesus himself knew that he was going to dip from the scene and leave generation after generation after generation of people on an earth talking about a salvation that's very nigh yet never at hand. Your salvation is nigh at hand, but this generation's dying and the next generation's dying and the next generation. Jesus knew that he was going to be putting people in this predicament, embarrassing as it would be to have you running around talking about he's coming, he's going to crack the sky any minute now. He knew that as embarrassing as that was, he wasn't going to do a thing to lift that embarrassment, and yet still had the nerve to tell you, and if you're embarrassed about me in front of man, I'm going to be embarrassed about you in front of my Father. Like, that makes Jesus a divine asshole. To know that he's going to be putting people in this predicament and not say, if you get a little, faulty in your faith or shaky, trust me, I get it. I get it. It's been 2,000 years. You're talking about me like I'm still coming back and I ain't came back yet. And you don't know when it's going to be. No man knows the day or the hour. A bunch of stuff that I said in the Bible didn't happen. I said I was going to come back in a lifetime of this generation. I didn't. Y'all finding out things that the Bible said is not true. You're finding out that there's no Adam and Eve and evolution. I get it. You're going to be embarrassed. I understand. Jesus knew all of that and yet still said, and you better not be embarrassed about me. I dare you. You embarrassed about me, I'm going to be embarrassed about you in front of my Father. So you got to stay here and just suck it up and just deal with the embarrassment, deal with I'm saying a bunch of things that I can't demonstrate. And I'm even going around telling people that they're going to go to hell if they don't believe me. And I can't demonstrate a lick of what I'm saying. And I'm out here on corners with street signs and billboards wrapped around me. And I'm handing out tracts to people. And my fellow Christian brethren and sisters, they're actually saying like, yo, he's coming back in our lifetime. And people are selling their possessions. And, oh, that date was wrong. Or we got a new date. And we got all these Bible prophecies. And we're trying to figure out if this passage from Daniel and this passage from Thessalonians and this passage from Revelation, is that what's happening in this presidency? Is that what's happening in World War II? Is that what's happening with Trump? Is that what's happening with Obama? Jesus knows all of that. Jesus knows about the child abuse, sex scandals of the Catholic Church. Jesus knows about your pastor who's going to get caught in adultery or get caught messing with kids. And Jesus knows about all of that. All of it. And it has the nerve to say to you, and you better not be embarrassed by me. Excuse me? What? What? Most of the people who are deconstructing, y'all tell me whether or not this is true. I found this to be true. Much of deconstruction is trying to save God the embarrassment that the corner that the Bible paints him into, the embarrassing corner the Bible paints him into. It's like, I don't want my God. I said God was holy. I said he was love. I said he was just. And now I got to deal with these passages that make slavery lifelong, perpetual slavery, where you can treat people harshly as long as they're not an Israelite. Your fellow Israelites, free them after 7 years. People from the nations around you, you can buy them, own them, pass them down to your children forever and treat them harshly. You just can't treat your fellow Israelites harshly. Like, you said your God is love, is justice, all these things, and then you find these things in the Bible, and it's almost like, okay. To save the concept of God that I have from the embarrassment of being immoral and being unjust and being unloving and being a liar for saying this is how humans came around, as opposed to what we're finding out in the natural sciences, to save my God from all of that embarrassment, I'm going to have to deconstruct some things and then figure out how I'm going to put this back together and still keep my God around, my Jesus around, my faith around. If you go back and go look at the Life After Faith playlist on this channel, many of the Life After Faith stories are, I got rid of this first, and I got rid of the Old Testament, then I got rid of this, then I got rid of, and I said, okay, just let me keep Jesus. Just let me keep Jesus. Why? Because the word is already going out. If you're ashamed of him before man, he'll be ashamed of you before the Father. So you shave off all the embarrassing things, and you're trying to not be embarrassed about him. But either he or his biographers knew this shit is about to get embarrassing. Gotta write something in here so that when people do get rightfully so, right? I would love for a Christian just to call up and just tell me, would you at least admit that, right? If you do get embarrassed, you're justified to be embarrassed, rightfully so. Now he says you can't afford to, because if you are, he's going to be embarrassed about you, ashamed of you. But would you at least admit? But it is embarrassing, right? It is embarrassing to worship a God who could show up, never does, who could speak, never does, right? Think about Ichabod, right? This channel, the talking cloud up above my head, right? God could write his name. Everybody knows, look, you see, we can't control the clouds. We can't do that. Well, I guess now if you got cloud seeding and things, maybe we could. But before we had the technology, like, God could write a message in the clouds. He could write a message in the stars. He could spell out, rather than give us holy books written on pages by people, he could write one holy book for all of humanity in the stars and have it so that every group, every language sees the stars arranged in their dialect to speak to them God's will. He doesn't do a damn thing. He stays hidden. He stays silent. He allows the diversification and the geographic splintering of religions around the world and never clears it up. He just wants us to come together and put our ideas against each other and see which God wins, which God story is more compelling. See, my gospel got a tear out of you. That must mean it's true. Or your pantheism, it did something within me. Maybe that means it's true. all these competing ideologies in the marketplaces of ideas, and just to see which one wins. That's God's bright idea to show. Would you at least admit, Christian, that God, it's embarrassing the way that this thing rolls out, and you have to keep shaving off parts of your religion that you maybe are ashamed of, but you feel like you can detach creation and evolution from Jesus, or you could detach maybe the Exodus from Jesus, or you could detach maybe the prophecies that don't pan out from Jesus, but you want to at least keep Jesus because you can't afford to be embarrassed about him. Would you at least admit he's put you? He's put the believer. He's put anyone who wants to consider the Bible, the biblical narrative, in an embarrassing situation, even though he said to you, but you can't afford to be embarrassed about it. You have to see the embarrassment. You have to take all of the potential shame that does come along with it, and you just gotta suck it up. You just gotta stand 10 toes on this and just go down with the ship, believing that, hey, if you do go down, Jesus was resurrected and you'll be resurrected too. Maybe if you lose popularity, maybe he'll resurrect that too. Maybe if you lose a job or friends or whatever, maybe he'll resurrect that too. You gotta stick with it in hopes that whatever you lose by being embarrassed by him, he will resurrect it someday. But there is good reason to be ashamed, and Jesus likes it that way. Either he or his biographers. So that's my spill. I like these call-ins because I like to sort of get my little, like, here's what I'm thinking out for the first half hour or so, and then you can call in and tell me where I'm wrong, where you disagree, or maybe you think it's God has every right to give this embarrassing message and say, hey, the foolishness of God is wiser than men's wisdom. As foolish as it seems, I'm committed to calling it wisdom because it came from God. And I'm going to err on the side of being with God, as opposed to, damn, it does look foolish. I'm going to call it what it looks like. Because that's what the deconverted person does. They finally get to the point where they're willing to call a spade. And they'll say things like,
right? Like, it's,
we say those kind of things because it's like, damn, that's sort of what it seems like. Whereas you, the Christian, you're committed to it looks like it, but it's not a scam. I probably should be embarrassed, but I'm not. I'm going to own it. Yo, what's up? Paula G in the chat says, what if God really wants us to see who can come up with the craziest ideas about God? So basically, this is just it's a God contest. And God or the gods are going to reward whoever can come up with the best story. So I'm very curious, Paul, what do you think? Which religion would win right now? Because maybe there will be some future religions that could put Christianity to shame. But which religion would win if there's a God contest, or God has us in a human contest? Like, who's going to come up with the best story for what's going on down here? And then God's going to reward. But if you're a Christian out there, would you give me that much? That yes, it kind of is embarrassing. Or would you say, no, there's no shame, there's no shade. I'm standing on this 10 toes, and you Brady, you unbelievers, you non-believers, y'all are the ones who are going to be embarrassed one day. And when God shows up, he's going to show you all why you should be embarrassed and why we, the Christians, should not have been embarrassed. Would you say that? I don't want to have your side of the conversation, but if you are a theist, particularly a Christian, the link is in the chat. I just posted it again, so you don't even have to go scrolling looking for it. All right. Would you call in and say, how would you set me straight? What would you say if you are a theist? And once again, I know how wild this is coming from me because I am part of the reason why the people who should feel the shame of believing this thing don't, because we went out and we said it with our chest. Jesus Christ, what? And we stood there with the baggy jeans and the boots and holding the microphone, and we sort of made it this thing where now it's cool to be a Christian. but it's probably not as cool as many of you all think. So I don't want to say too much more. I don't want to have your side of the conversation. If you're a Christian theist and you want to tell me why, no, this is not embarrassing. No, there is no shame. Here's why. Or even if there is shame, here's why I'm still holding on. Because maybe you admit, okay, Brady, you got that. It is a little embarrassing at times, especially if we're going to take the Bible literally. It's all the more embarrassing. But here's why I'm still willing to do it. I would love to hear from you. This is not me trying to like crap on. I'm going to say this. You're going to be like, yeah, right. I am not here to crap on your religion. I want to understand why you think it's still worth holding on in light of what we now know. Because when I started realizing, damn, here's how far we've gotten in what we know about the world. If I was going to be honest, I was like, I've got to do something with this. And that changes the way I hold my faith to the point where I couldn't even hold it anymore. But if you're like, nah, I'm still going to hold it regardless, I would love to know from you why. I'm not going to clown you. I will ask some genuine, sincere, maybe hard questions, but I will also allow you to ask some of me. If you've seen the way that these conversations go, I'm not here to dunk on anyone. I don't know everything. I don't always say things the way that I mean to say them. Sometimes I say things wrong. And if you don't know everything and you don't say everything right, I'm not going to be like, dummy, it's this, not that. That's not how I get down. Matter of fact, a lot of times I try to say face for people like, hey, you're probably not doing as good as you'd like to do right now. Maybe you want to call back, right? I'm not here to embarrass anyone, but I would love to have that conversation. If you're a theist, particularly if you're a Christian, Jesus's words that you can't afford to be ashamed of him before man because he's going to be ashamed of you before the Father. Doesn't that say he knows that he's putting you in an embarrassing situation, yet he just wants you to stand in it? And if you think I've got that wrong, please call, holler at me. Maybe you're not a Christian theist. Maybe you're some other kind of theist. I struggle with this. Is it embarrassing to be a theist at all? There's a sense in which I'm willing to say I don't think it's embarrassing to be a theist at all. Why? Because as long as we have unanswered questions in our world, someone can always say, aha, see, this is what Paul did, right? On Mars Hill. I see, men, that you're very religious. You've got a God for this, you got a God for that, you got a God for this. But the unknown, at the end of your list of gods, Paul says you have this one statue to an unknown God. And then Paul says, that's the God I came to proclaim with you. That was a God of the gaps argument. That may have been the first God of the gaps argument. We got these unknowns. And wherever the unknowns are, until we do know, you can always stick God in that gap. And so if your idea of God is in all the gaps that we haven't figured out yet, what can I say? Because I don't have an answer for those gaps. So I can't rule your God out. I could talk about why that's probably not likely, but I can't rule it out. But most God concepts that I hear, I feel like there's reason to be ashamed of some of it, but I would imagine that some of you feel like, and I'm trying not to have your side of the conversation, Thea, so please call in. I feel like you're looking at me saying, nah, Brady, you're the one that should be embarrassed because your gaps aren't filled in. Brady, you don't know where life came from. You don't know what came before the Big Bang. You don't know. And how are you walking around here all confident with your gaps unfilled in? So you might feel like I should be embarrassed. You can call and we can have that conversation. The link is in the chat. Scroll all the way up. It's the top comment if you don't feel like scrolling through looking for links. But My Unique Monique posts the link in the chat, but you can scroll all the way up. If you're on Instagram, the link is in my bio. Or if you're on Facebook, it's the top comment. And I always forget to go back and look at the Facebook comments. I need another screen here. which is why you should join the Patreon so I can get another monitor. Let me check Facebook real quick. And in the meantime, you know how we do. If you are atheist, not not atheist, if you are a theist and you like to call in until we get some theist callers and just talk real quick about how you dealt with any shame you might have felt as a Christian, or were you one of those proud and loud, like, no, they're all going to find out that they were wrong. I think about verses and even songs. When I was a kid, there was a song I used to always hear my mother would play, this song that every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess that Jesus is Lord. So I'm just like, okay, even if y'all want to clown me for believing now, just know that in my heart, I'm sitting here like self-soothing on the idea that one day all of y'all knees are going to bow and your tongues are going to confess the thing that I'm sitting here confessing to you now. Like that's how the Christian feels. The Christian feels like you're just doing what the rest of creation is going to do one day. You're doing it by choice, and then one day we're all going to do it by force. You're choosing to praise Jesus now, even though, depending on what Bible verse you read, even that's not a choice of your own, right? The whole idea of free will, like that in the Bible is sort of a, you know, it's a very interesting idea of whether you even had the choice to believe, or whether the Father drew you and called you and predestined you, and you really had no choice in the matter anyway. But a popular Christian saying is, you're either going to bow by choice or by force, which sort of sounds almost like what the Christian nationalists are saying, right? Like, you better get down now. The gangsters in LA, the gangsters back in the day say, get down or lay down, right? You're going to get down with this one way or another. And so you're looking at the rest of us like, no, you don't have any reason to be ashamed, because one day he's going to crack the sky, he's going to show up, and you all will be able to say, I told you so. But you're not going to say, right, because you have humility, right? As a Christian, you're not going to say, I told you so. Matter of fact, you're probably just going to say, dang, that's a shame that that's happening to y'all. But we did tell you so. But if you are, I said a theist. I mean, if you are atheist, that's what I meant to say a minute ago. It's weird y'all doing these lives like this, like to have the presence of mind to say the things that I'm saying while thinking a million different things at the same time. It's a wild exercise. But part of the reason why I wanted to start doing these lives was to get better at thinking on my feet. Like, I'm great if you give me time and a keyboard and I can type my ideas out. That's why I spent the last, 4 years on Facebook every day, because if I can think my thoughts and type them out, I'm good. I got you. But if I have to think on my feet, I'm not as swift with that. So I wanted to start doing these so that I can get better at hearing ideas and thinking on my feet, and be thinking about everything I got to think about to run the show, and still be cognizant and putting coherent thoughts together and not losing my words like I always do. Anyway, so that's part of why I'm doing this. Said a whole lot. Let me take a breath. Let me scroll up through the comments to see what am I missing. If you have a comment that you do not want me to miss, super chat it, $1 or $2. That way it'll stand out. Otherwise, I'm going to scroll and I'll look for names of people who are on the Patreon, but sometimes even that may be too much to read while I'm trying to do a live show at the same time. So I'm just going to scroll up and look for names, look for comments that I might want to try to read real quick. Shout out to my sister, Sha Goodwin, in the chat. Says, oh, she's talking to somebody else. But that's a good, let me see what that conversation is. See, I'm not going to be able to follow the conversation. And now I'm going to like read y'all whole back and forth. All right, I'm just going to look for, yep. Paul, that's exactly the verse that I had in mind. Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his glory with the Father and the angels. Indeed. And more of you all probably answered my question above about were you ashamed? But it's hard to kind of go back now and try to find all those. So don't feel like your comment is wasted. People in the chat probably vibed with you on that. So that's kind of why I asked those questions too, not just so that I can have banter with you, but so that you all can have banter with one another. So it's Sage. I want to read this comment. It says, I had a bit of an ego boost about having faith in something most weren't convinced of. Street preaching made me one of the happiest because I actually believe an ego of knowing I'm a better follower. Can we talk about how much pride goes into believing? Like there's so much pride that you don't really think about as pride. There's the pride of he chose me, so I believe while all of y'all don't. There's also the pride of how was I able to see this and you all miss it? Which sort of contradicts the idea that he chose me, because are you giving yourself credit for peeping something that everybody else missed? Or are you like, did he choose you? The only reason you see it is because he opened your eyes. All right, before I say any more, I do have a caller. I don't know if this is Mo Wheat or this is just a different Mo. So we'll see when I go into the chat. Caller, just so you know, your camera is on. You can keep it on. I like that type action so we can see each other, but you don't have to. I'll give you a minute to adjust that if you want to. All right. So please welcome to the stage, Mo. What's good?
It's good, man. I'm just calling you because I'm on a plane. I figured this might be a good first.
Okay.
I,
Where you
I
headed?
don't know how good the reception is. Back home, she like my daughter on there. She looking like, you on the fuck to get her off you. Heading back to Sacramento. We had a cheer
Okay.
competition. We was in the Bahamas for
Oh,
our cheer
nice.
team.
Nice.
Yeah,
Dope,
so
dope, dope. Okay, so Mo, talk to us real quick. Are you a theist, atheist, agnostic? Where are you at with the God question? Oh no, 30,000 feet is probably not going to work as
yeah.
well. You're not you're not coming
Dang.
through. Ah,
I
damn. This would have been our first conversation, right?
yeah, well, nah. First live conversation, but remember we had
Oh yeah. We did the life after faith.
the recording one.
Yeah, we did
We had
life
the
after
live to
faith.
say
I
that,
think about 7 or 8 months ago.
yeah.
Dag, I would love to kick it with you, but I'm not sure if the plane is going to allow you to actually, because I can hear myself coming back delayed.
Yeah.
But hold on, real quick.
Oh, okay. Okay.
While we got you, you seem like you're okay now. While we got you, what did you want
Mhm.
to say real quick? While we got you,
Oh no, my I raised like, well, she not hers, but the beginning six were raised as Christians, and it's like they're all still stuck in it. So yeah,
I don't
well,
think
no, I
we
take
talk
that
about
back.
that when you.
I think we did, but one of them isn't. My
Okay,
the daughter above her, she's not.
okay,
She's like me the whole time. I think she's just kind of like, and now she's like, I don't agree with it at all. I don't know what that was. So,
got you.
but the other ones, yeah.
Mm.
One of my sons
And did
actually
you
told me he's not speaking to me because of that, because of an atheist. It was kind of shocking. Yeah, recently.
what?
Yeah,
What?
my
Can
first
I ask
shunning.
how old he
I
is?
He's 31. He'll be 32 in December. It's some other issues going on too. I think that may have
Okay.
been his excuse. That's why I'm laughing
Mm.
about it. Because
Okay.
we got some issues with him right now. So, but yeah, he basically told me that. And I was like, oh,
Mm.
okay.
So
Yeah.
when you were in, were you the kind of Christian where you were unashamed? I forgot about the whole unashamed movement. I got to go back and talk about that.
Nah,
But were you unashamed?
um, I wasn't really, I was there,
Oh,
but I
that's right.
wasn't there. I wasn't,
That's right.
yeah. So it was just kind of like, whatever, you know.
Got you.
But them,
So I'm.
I felt like you should raise them like that. Because
Mm,
I felt, because of what was told, the whole reason why I started going back to church with my ex-wife is because my producer told me, hey,
yeah.
you grew up a
Yeah.
Christian. So I figured maybe kids need to be raised like that. So
Right. And you kind of,
Yeah,
and
that's
he or you had given credit for your good character to the Christianity that you were
yeah,
raised in. Yeah, I
correct.
remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Mm.
So that's pretty much, yeah. And they all were raised, and yeah, one of them
So
is like
now, what
that's
do you
how.
do, especially with the one with the one that's beside you? How do you get quote unquote
Mhm.
the good character into her without the religion that you use with the other six?
I'm just right and wrong. Would you want
Mm.
to be treated like that? No. Then
Hmm.
we had an incident in the Bahamas, and I had to tell her, you wouldn't want to be treated like that. So why would you do that to somebody else?
Mm.
So that's all it is. You just respect people like you want to see people like you want to be treated.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of simple. You don't want people stealing from you, then don't steal
Hmm.
from people. You know,
Hmm. Yeah,
she didn't steal
good
nothing. I'm
stuff.
just using that as an example.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
I don't want to think she a thief over here. Hey, she's not a thief. She just says
Nah,
some
all
wrong
good.
things to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, but appreciate you checking in, man. And I'm
Yep.
buzzing
I
off of
had
the
to call in
technology
because I'm
that
up here.
you're on a
Yeah.
flight and we're actually just sitting there able to kick it right now. This is just wild, yo.
Yep. American
Yeah.
Airlines free Wi-Fi. So
Yeah. I know you wasn't on
yep.
no spirit.
All
So
right, bro.
hey,
Yep.
much love to you, bro.
All right. Peace out,
I'll get
everybody.
with you. All right. Yeah, still waiting for Theus to call in. Um, the link is in the chat. It's been posted several times. I will post it again. Um, do you think that Jesus really said the words, if you're ashamed of me before man, I'll be ashamed of you before the Father? And what was going through Jesus's mind? What did he know, he or his biographers, that made him say, ooh, I better put this warning in here? Like he literally, he or them, they looked and said, they're going to have reason to be ashamed. Let me, let me, let me write something, let me say something to check that impetus for shame. And those are one of the verses that are there. And does that do it for you? Does that warning help you to say, Dad, I can't afford to give in to the shame? It's there. Would you be honest enough to say it's there, but I can't give into it? Or would you say, no, it's not even there? There's no shame in this because I know it's true and I know he's coming again and I know I'll be vindicated. A lot of Christianity is waiting to be vindicated because I'm going around the world saying these things, or I'm going around my job or my house or my neighborhood saying these things, and they don't look like they're true. But one day he's going to vindicate me, and he's going to show that I was right to hope and to trust and to preach and to live holy and to all these things. There's a verse I used to always wrestle with in Psalms, right? Psalm 73, where it begins and it says, why do the wicked prosper? How long, O Lord, will you let the wicked just, do their thing? They eat, they have all their fill, and they laugh and they're haughty, this, that, and the third. But then towards the end of the psalm, it says, but when I entered into the house of the Lord, the sanctuary of my God, then I understood their end. There's always this future looking thing from the Bible's perspective that one day God's going to show why we were right to trust in him, to wait on him, to not wild out, to live a certain way, and to believe the way we believe. He's going to vindicate. Like, why does the God of the Bible put his followers in this precarious situation where you look like a fool, but have to hope that one day he's going to prove that all the doubters should have been looking as foolish as you? Do you not have a problem with the God that says, I'm going to embarrass you? You just better not be embarrassed by me. That's going to be our whole relationship. And then here's what you do as a Christian. Here's why many of you are not embarrassed like you probably should be. Like I said, one, because you had the pop culture Christianity that people like me in my group, we helped make it cool to take the stigma away. But then outside of that, you've got a Christian community. You surround yourself with people who believe like you believe. That way you feel less foolish. You surround yourself with people who, let's say, if you're a Christian clan, maybe y'all don't accept evolution. So you surround yourself with people, and even the quote unquote Christians in the sciences, the intelligent design crew, who will tell you that, oh no, evolution is not as strong as they say, and we got problems with the flagellum, and we got problems with the this, and how do you explain the eye? And you surround yourself with people to make you not feel as foolish as you would feel if you were living in a world with people who acted the way the religion actually sort of dictates. Like it invites, it says this is the foolishness of God, but don't worry, it's wiser than men's wisdom. You've got to surround yourself with them so that you feel confident and what's the word I'm looking for? You almost feel like, we talk about the Christian bubble that people live in. And I think without that bubble, you would realize your ideas, your views, your convictions, like you couldn't ground them, but because you can look around and see other people that share the same views and are willing to be as quote unquote foolish as you are willing to be, then it doesn't feel as bad. They say misery loves company. And I really truly believe that sort of is what Christianity was originally. It was this small band of people who believed, and maybe their Messiah, their would-be Messiah, was taken from them, and they felt foolish for having believed. And it happened all the time in the first century, even before the Common Era. You had all these people coming and claiming to be the seed of Jesse, or claiming to be the Messiah, and then Rome kills this one, and maybe Greece killed that one. All these people who are dying, and maybe the followers got embarrassed and they let it go eventually. Sometimes they actually did linger a while. Even after the person died, their following lingered for a while. Don't worry, the righteous teacher is going to return, or he's going to some kind of way. But with the Jesus cult, what happened was you had a band of people who say, you know what? We're not going out with like them other would-be Messiah followers. We're not going to let our story die. We're going to keep this thing going. We can't afford to be wrong. We can't afford to be seen as foolish. We can't afford to be put to shame. We can't afford to go back to waiting for the next Messiah to come. No. One of us, somebody had to have seen him resurrected. He's still alive. We've got a hope and we've got a reason. Matter of fact, didn't he say he was going to resurrect? Yeah, remember he said, and then you start telling stories about how he said and how he warned and how I'm just waiting for the theist to call and tell me why I'm wrong, why I'm mistaken, how you would help somebody else not be ashamed when they might feel like, man, Brady's got a point. Maybe this thing is a little embarrassing. Maybe I'll give you a chance to shore up your Christian brethren if you want to call in and tell us why no one should be ashamed. I'm going to challenge what you have to say, but I invite you to challenge me as well. In the meantime, welcome Wade back to the show. My guy out in Alaska. What's up, Wade?
What's up, brother, man?
Good to see you, man. How's things?
Oh, pretty good. I just keep running into your show, and you just happen to be on. And I just wanted to say all hail Nawa, all hail Nawa.
And it doesn't Nawa. We don't really know how to pronounce his name. We say it however it rolls off the tongue.
That's right.
That's how.
Yeah, it's the non-tetragrammation.
Exactly.
Remember the tetragram? Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to get one of those. And put it right about here.
Yeah, there you go. I'll hook you up. I'll send you. I'll tell Nawe to visit you in Alaska.
There you go. Hook a brother up.
When you were a Christian, were you ever ashamed? And did you ever reach a point where you were no longer ashamed? And what got you there? What was that like for you?
Well, I wasn't super big on evangelizing people. Okay. More, I guess, my emphasis as a Christian was to do good works, and love my neighbor, help my neighbor, and maybe use
let your light so shine before men.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe use that to get them to come to church, and that sort of thing. But it wasn't like I was standing on the street corner,
Well, when you
evangelizing and
invited them
preaching
to
the
church
gospel.
with you, were you ever ashamed inviting them to church? Like, man, are they going to come in and see how weird we are or how crazy we seem? Or did you have full confidence that they would come in and maybe the spirit would move or something with the music would grab them or anything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I didn't go to like a Pentecostal church, so I wasn't worried about being slain in the spirit, jerking on the floor,
Yeah.
speaking in tongues or any of that. That would have embarrassed the hell out of me. So it was none of that. It was just about being a good Christian and helping
Mhm.
people and praying for people. Somebody have relational issues, you'd take them aside and say, "Hey, can I pray for you?" And just be a witness, just be a light in the
Yeah.
darkness. But I
Mm.
have, if you don't mind, I have biblical proof that Jesus was an embarrassment.
Talk about it.
It's in the Bible, my friend. It's in Mark
Okay.
chapter 1. Let's see. I don't know if this is going to kill my camera, but let's see. This is Mark. Let me find the verse here again.
I'm going to it myself.
Mark chapter 3. Let's all turn our Bibles to Mark chapter 3, brothers and sisters. Can I get an amen out there?
Amen, Pastor.
Thank
How
you,
far down
sir.
we
Thank
going?
you. Verse 20 through 22.
Okay. 20 to
It says,
22.
then Jesus entered. Yeah. Yeah. Jesus entered into a house, and again a crowd gathered so that he and his disciples were not even
Oh,
able to eat.
wait.
When his
No, that's not 320. That's not Mark chapter 3.
Mark 3, I'm in the Mark chapter 3, New International Version, verse
Okay, well,
20.
go ahead. Keep reading. Maybe it'll line up eventually.
Yeah, okay, could be. Got all those different translations out there.
Mhm.
Said that Jesus went into somebody's crib. The crowd gathered so that he and his disciples weren't able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him. I guess grab
So
him
wait,
and
hold
pull
on.
him
No,
out because
it's not lining up. It's not lining up. I want to make sure we're in the same passage. Mark chapter 3, right?
Yes, sir. Let
Verse
me double
20.
check this here. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Should be verse 20 through 22.
Come on, this is the word of God. We got to get it right.
Let me go to, can't be taking anything out of the word, friend. Let me try the although I did see a really good Dan McClellan,
Mm-hmm.
the Bible scholar Dan McClellan.
Yep.
I saw him talk about what verses have been taken out of the Bible and why. So so let's see. Yeah, I'm in Mark chapter 3 verse 20. And
Let me update mine because
in the
maybe I
RSV.
didn't update something.
Are you using the Bible Gateway?
Yeah. So I got Mark chapter 3, verse 20. Then, and I'm in the ESV version.
Okay. And that's the Bible Gateway
Then he
link.
went home and Wait, what'd you say?
If that's what link are you using? Because one of those you have to refresh it on the right hand side.
Yeah, I have refreshed it, and I'm at Mark chapter 3, and
Okay.
verse 20 reads, "Then he went home, and the crowd gathered again, so they could not even eat. And when his family heard it, they went out to seize him, but they were saying he's out of his mind. And the scribes who
That's
came
right.
down." Okay, so it just sounded way different in your version. Let me just finish verse 22. "And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem were saying, he is possessed by Beelzebub, and the prince of demons, and by the prince of demons he cast out demons." That's the passage you had in mind.
Yeah, no, see, yeah, exactly. So they came together. I think they were going to eat. They went home. The crowd came together, so they couldn't even eat. They were trying to eat. when his family heard it, they went out to restrain him. They were going to physically restrain him because they said he's mad. He's gone out of his mind. He's
you know what? I completely missed that.
Yes, sir.
Let me read it again just to so then he went home, he being Jesus, and the crowd gathered again so that they could not even eat. And when his family heard it, they went out to seize him, for they were saying, he's out of his damn mind. Like, what's wrong with this guy? Okay,
you're out of your damn mind. So there's also later on, I think it's verse 31. Let's see. Oh, and like verse 28, he talks about whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit can never be forgiven, but he's guilty of eternal sin. And then the crowd said, he has an unclean spirit, talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's some implication in there that they thought that, he's embarrassing, man. We got to get him out of this crowd because he's making us look bad. And
well, there's even more.
Too, when
I didn't
went
even
to
think about this. Oh, well, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say when he went to the temple and his parents found him, and he said, he was embarrassing them. That's part of the reason why they went to find him, because he was like embarrassing his family in front of the scribes and the priests. That's my thinking.
As a Christian, I would have thought, no, if the fact that he was there impressing the elders, that wouldn't have been embarrassing. That sort of would have been like he's actually outclassing them. But maybe that would have been embarrassing from a Jewish position. Like, what is this 12-year-old doing? Talking to these rabbis.
Exactly.
Like
You can't control your kid. Get him out of here.
It made me think about when he says, hey, if you don't, whoever eats my flesh and my blood, like that, and it's like, yo, eating your flesh and blood. He says, if you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, you're not gonna have any part of me. And then the crowd left. And then they turned to he turned to the disciples and said, hey, are you going to leave too? And once again, I don't know if I feel as strongly about this passage, but I do feel like this might be another one of those passages that were written in to make people say, well, see, it makes sense that everybody else would want to leave him, but if you're a dedicated follower, you can't, because it's called a surrogate audience. And shout out to Apologia, because I actually got this from
interesting.
I said shout out to Apologia, but it's actually from Shannon Q. Shannon Q is the one that introduced me to the idea of a surrogate audience. You write an audience into your script, and you have the audience do things that you want the reader to actually do. And so they sort of like vicariously through the crowd in the story, you kind of say, okay, there's two crowds. There's the crowd that heard what's called the hard sayings of Jesus and left. And then there's this other crowd. Oh, you said mic check.
Yeah. Am I good? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. You started going fuzzy there for a second. I don't know what's going on.
Now, how does it sound?
Sound like a brother should.
Okay. Thank you all. And I am looking into a new mic because my unique Monique, thank you so much. She's been doing the research.
She rocks.
There seems to be a problem with this particular brand of mic and Rode. If y'all know about this and y'all didn't tell nobody about this, then shame on y'all. But this Rode mic seems to be a problem with the Rode. So I'm going to get a new mic, which is another reason why you should join the Patreon to help me do the things that we do on this channel. But I was saying, these hard sayings of Jesus, Shannon Q was the one that introduced me to the idea of a surrogate audience, because now you got these two crowds. One crowd hears the hard sayings of Jesus and they leave him. Another crowd hears the hard sayings of Jesus, and not only do they not leave, but they say, I mean, where else are we going to go? You alone have the words of life. Now just think about that. Think about how exemplary that's meant to be. Where else am I going to go? You can go a bunch of different places. Like, You haven't traveled the world. You don't know who else has better words, but you write into the good crowd's mouth. Where else? There's nowhere else to go. Only you have the
Interesting.
words of life. And the idea
Mm,
is the reader is supposed to see that and say, okay, so then don't be like the crowd that left at his hard sayings. Be like the crowd that says, there's nowhere else for me to go. As embarrassing as it is to have him saying all these
mm,
crazy things,
yeah.
these are words of life and no one else has them.
That's interesting from a literary perspective because they're using that literary technique to develop an in crowd and an out crowd. And
Exactly.
and people want to be on the in crowd, and not the out crowd. So they're using that to say, if you want to be on the in crowd, you have to follow the straight and narrow path.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
many people fit on the wide path, but only the chosen few fit on the narrow path. Us versus them.
That's another that's another one. You write those kind of things in to make the crowd that should feel ashamed, that should be questioning, that should be doubting. You've got to make them feel like the only reason why you feel like you should be doubting and questioning is because you actually have found the truth and only you know it. You're special
Yep.
for
Yep.
having seen this. So I've got to make this, you're really the out crowd, but I've got to make the out crowd now feel like the in crowd.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're being manipulated.
Yeah, that's what the authors are doing. They're manipulating you with literary technique, and that whole idea of having special knowledge is what sort of fuels conspiracy theories. A lot of that goes into conspiracy theories where people are like, well, the government isn't telling you this, but I know the secret. Oh, you are the government's covering up UFOs, but I know UFOs really exist. Chemtrails, all that kind of stuff. And that's also the appeal of the mystery schools, is that the mysteries. The uninitiated don't know the mysteries of the mystery schools. They haven't been initiated. So there's that appeal to sort of exclusive knowledge.
Yes. Wow.
Wow.
So, I mean, think about if you're watching, there's manipulation afoot. And all these people who've deconverted, it's not, the great falling away and many, it's not that. It's people who peeped the manipulation and said, you're not going to manipulate me any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you feel like, no, they just should have waited a little bit longer. The question I started this whole show off with is, okay, maybe Wade and I and others who've deconverted, maybe we should have waited longer. But that just means there's a God who decided to let it go this long that people would lose faith. And he knew it and said, hey, there's going to come a time where you're going to have a reason where you should be ashamed. But if you ever give into it, I'm going to be ashamed of you. So you can't afford to even, he knew it. He set it up this way and he still let it roll.
Yeah. Yeah. And he knew it was going to be set up that way from a time eternal, and he knew exactly what day, what hour, what event was going to cause you to lose your faith, and I really seriously think that if the gospel story were as incontrovertible as apologists would like us to believe, then the proof of it would be incontrovertible. We would have so much overwhelming proof that Jesus really existed, and that he rose from the dead and died for our sins. But all of that information that we have is hearsay knowledge. The Gospels were written by people who say they talk to people who talk to people, and it's not really eyewitness. It's not eyewitness testimony.
Right.
It's not. It's hearsay, and I think that had the gospel story been, I've told people this before, if God really wanted to document the story of Jesus, he would have made video cameras available, and then somebody, I think it was you last time I was on the show, you said, but what if the devil created AI and he could fake the videos? And I was like, poof, mind blown, man.
No, but I mean, we do have ways to sort of tell when there's AI. Like a God could have made it so that it was AI proof, or so that it was clearly incontrovertible, right? Mm-hmm. So he could have waited until there was a way to document this in a way that wasn't so open to corruption. but he didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he didn't.
So here's what go ahead.
I was going to say too, if we wanted again incontrovertible truth, you could have had the documents, the manuscripts that we have, being much more robust and going back to the hand of the original authors, with witnesses signing and saying, yes, I knew Luke, who wrote the book of Acts, Luke Acts, and I traveled with him. And we, if you don't believe me, talk to this guy, he will confirm my story, blah, blah, blah. But we don't. We have fragments. We have little bitty scraps here and there, until you get up into like the 3rd and 4th century. Then you started getting a little more bigger pieces of manuscripts. And that's just flimsy evidence.
Well, here's what I ended up saying. So, I mean, you see the banner going across the top. Does Jesus have a shame kink? And I think, like, if you want to put these words in Jesus's mouth, like if these are not just writers sticking these thought terminating cliches in Jesus's mouth to make other people not question, if Jesus really said this, what it ends up looking like is the God of the Bible just sort of gets off. He gets off on faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please him, right?
Right.
I'm not trying to be crass when I say this, y'all, but I think this is a great parallel. Think about just in the world of sexuality, there are certain things that get people off. There are people who are turned on. I'm not going to name no names. I got a friend who his thing is feet. He just, you show him feet, and especially feet with a certain kind of like toenail polish.
Oh yeah.
He is totally. Like, he's gone. I'm like, I can't understand it, but that's your thing. I'm not going to yuck your yum. If you like that, then cool. But God's thing just happens to be faith. Like, he could just show up and show out, but he just gets off. Maybe he can't even get his jollies off. Like, there's some people who, until you say a certain thing when you're making love, or until you do a certain, they just can't get off. And maybe God's thing is just like, I don't climax until you have faith. And so I'm just going to, and matter of fact, it's not just faith, because it's one thing to make somebody have faith. But think about when Elijah was challenging the prophets of Baal, right?
Right.
When it was his God's turn, he had to make it even more difficult for his God. Pour water on it. What the sacrifice? Do this, do that. Why? Because I want to show you. Maybe God's thing is not just, I need you to have faith for me to get off. Maybe God's thing is, I need you to have faith in something that is so unbelievable that I got to just up the ante. I got to tell you something that's anti-science. I got to tell you something that's anti-history. I got to tell you something that's anti-logic. And then if you'll believe that, I really get off when you believe that kind of stuff. Like, maybe Jesus just has a shame kink where, last thing I'll say, and I'll turn it back over to you. There are people in the world of sexual exploration where there's like, what did I see? My Twitter, like I said, my Twitter is like full of all kinds of crazy stuff. But there are people who do these like dog walking in public kind of things where the dominant person will have the sub person on a leash, and they'll like go to public malls and they'll have the person walking around on a leash and they'll make them bark. And then it's not just enough to do that. They have to draw a crowd, and the crowd comes around, and the person has to perform for the crowd and just bark when and sniff when they tell them to sniff, and they get off on, like, that's how they get off. They get off on humiliating the other person. It's a shame kink, and it's like, maybe that's Jesus's thing. Like, maybe he just, I got to make it harder and harder for you to believe, but if you believe it, I'm going to reward you. Greatest of reward. Thomas, you believe because you put your finger in and you saw, but blessed are those who haven't seen and still believe.
Here comes your reward. Here comes your reward. Hey, you know how Pinocchio's girlfriend gets off? Pinocchio.
How?
She sits on his face and says, "Lie to me, lie to me." She loves that stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's not. I mean, it is a kink, but it's also like a psychotic thing, with the deity. And I think you kind of see that with people like Donald Trump. He thinks, as a narcissist, as a pathological narcissist, that he's He's able to deceive a lot of people, and that he's so smart and so powerful that he can deceive 30% of Americans who, are his base. Just believe his every word. He said something the other day. I don't want to get too political, but he said something the other day about this whole situation in Iran where he said, "Oh, I have a plan and it's a good plan." Well, he's not going to tell you what his plan is because he doesn't have a plan. And as I like to say, as a project manager, no plan is not a plan. When people say we really don't have a plan, we're like, well, that's not a plan. So
it is if the plan is to string you along long enough to continue to fleece you.
Yes.
And maybe that's what Bible God's plan is. Like, if I can just string y'all along long enough, I hate to keep using all these sexual references, but since we're talking about it, like, there's something called edging, right?
Oh yeah. No, edging, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea.
Maybe some of y'all are getting an education. This is like turn into a sex after faith episode, but edging is when, like, the climax, when you get to the point where you climax and ejaculate and you have your orgasm, because after that, it's kind of over at that point, right? Like you got there, unless you have the physicality to kind of go again. But what you can do is, when you start edging, is I'll get as close as I can to climaxing, but then I'll walk it back. I'll stop. And I'll try to stay on the edge of getting there, because it's its own kind of pleasure, because once you get there, it's sort of over at that point. And so maybe for Bible God, it's like, I don't want to show up, because once I show up, it's kind of over at that point. Like, so if I can just keep you all on the edge of believing for as long as possible. Talk about the Lord. He's the edge Lord, right? The edge Lord of edge lords, where he just keeps you on the edge of faith forever. So can you imagine? Imagine it's the year 9361. Imagine it's the year 12,500, and people are still just trusting and believing and trying to not be ashamed, even though by now you clearly should be ashamed. And the edge Lord is in heaven, just getting off, like, just not even getting off, just getting close to getting off, because you're just continuing to keep the faith alive. Sure. It's wild.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the story of Job. When Satan, or in the Old Testament, the Hasatan, the angel that tempted, that Satan originally in the Bible was an angel of God. He was in the very presence of God. Right, more or less. So, God was Yahweh was bragging about Job, his servant Job, and look how faithful he is and trusting of me, and he worships me like he's supposed to. And then the Hasatan, the Satan, said, "Let me go down there and kill his animals and kill his family, and we'll see just how faithful he is to you." Yet, despite all of that Satan did to Job, he still worshiped God and praised God. And you know what? I think God got off on that. Gave him some sense of satisfaction. That's how the story reads. Exactly.
That's how the story reads.
Yep.
Wow. I'm definitely clipping this part. Hey, thanks for checking in, bro. I always enjoy chopping it up with you, man.
Yeah, likewise, bro.
We'll kick it again real soon.
All right, word.
All right, yeah, get with you, man. Peace. Theist, if you're out there and maybe you're offended, like maybe you're like, yo, I can't believe this dude is saying this kind of stuff. Like, always make the comparison. Like, you had young David who saw Goliath taunting the armies of the living God, and looked around at the other Israelites like, yo, y'all not going to say nothing. And then David was like, yo, give me the armor. He didn't say give me the armor. Let me go. Let me go challenge this giant. Maybe you're hearing the way we're talking about Bible God, your God, Jesus, and you don't like it. I'll take the banner down in case that's offensive to you. I just thought it was fitting in light of what we were talking about. Maybe you hear the way we're talking about Jesus and you don't like it, and you want to call to defend Like, no, it's not wrong of God to ask us to have faith. It's not wrong of God to say, you should not be ashamed of him before man. And it's right of him to say, if you are, he's going to be ashamed of you before the Father. You want to call in and set the record straight, set me straight, defend how it seems like God is getting down. I will give you the floor. I'm not going to talk over you. I will let you talk. Demand the same kind of respect when I talk, but I'm not going to interrupt you. Maybe you could call and set the record straight and help rescue somebody's faith, because I know what's damaging to people's faith sometimes is just the fact that somebody could talk like this. Like, you could look and see somebody talking like this and be like how why isn't God doing or saying anything? And that could be damaging to somebody's faith. So maybe you're like, somebody's got to say something. Somebody's got to shut this guy up or give an answer. Hey, maybe that could be you, right? Maybe you could call in and just let us know how you see it differently. And maybe that'll help rescue somebody's faith from doubting. Who knows? The link is in the chat. I posted it again just now. If you're on Facebook, it is the top comment. I did say I was going to go look at Facebook comments, but then somebody called and I got distracted. I don't even know what's happening on Facebook right now. So sometimes this happens where no theists call in. We're getting close to 2 hours. If I get to 2 hours and no theist calls in, then I will go ahead and wrap it up. But I'm going to be here for at least another half hour. My sister just posted in the chat, said, speaking of Satan as a child, the fact that he was an angel in the presence of God and still became the devil was never a strong selling point for Christianity in my mind. I'm always jealous of my sister because she had the wherewithal. This is not Tyga. When Tyga was my older sister, this is the middle child, Sha. She had the wherewithal to be around all the stuff we were around, but to keep her wits and just say, this don't make no sense. And she tried to believe it, but she just couldn't get there. And I went there. I went there and I gave my life to this nonsense for 30 plus years. Yeah. If anybody else sees something in the chat that you feel like I should pay attention to, like, hey, that would be a good comment, try to find a way to like flag it for me or get it to me. This will be a treat. So the person that we talked to last week, Jack Talcott, is calling in. So we're going to talk to Jack. That was a great convo. Let's just bring Jack in and we'll talk. But real quick, let me just scroll up, make sure there's nothing in the chat that I'm missing. There's no super chats, but okay, let me bring Jack in. My God, what's good, sir?
Blessings to you, my friend. And no super chats. Oh yeah, it's Monday. Weekend was amazing.
Okay.
I wanted to offer no super chats yet, right? We'll plant that seed. We'll get
there
those
you go.
coming in.
There you go. Right? No super chats yet. Yes, sir. So you heard me sitting here pontificating. I'm curious your thoughts as I'm talking about the embarrassing nature of Jesus saying, if you're ashamed of me before man, I'll be ashamed of you before my Father, seems to suggest to me that either he or his biographers knew that there would be reason for people to be ashamed. And therefore they had to give this sort of injunction against shame. But it seems like then that means it's a sort of built-in part of believing. What do you think about that?
Wow. I tuned in late. These are great questions, great perspectives. There's a connection in my mind between shame and
I'm sorry, real quick. I'm sorry, real quick. Because there are people who didn't watch the last episode. Can you catch us up on just where you are with things, atheist, theistic, agnostic, and maybe your brand of theism if you are a theist?
Yes, and thank you. I found myself to become a theist for sure, and a follower of Jesus. Possibly more in the lines of Christian mysticism, perhaps.
Mhm. That's good.
But the question of shame,
Mhm.
there's something interesting there, because in the story, isn't it Peter that denies Jesus 3 times on the night of
I
the
didn't even think
crucifixion?
about that. Yep.
And so people did show shame.
Mhm.
Here's what I realized, just following the path of logic, the way we're designed, shame prevents love.
You said shame prevents love? How so?
We'll deny it. When we feel shameful, we feel unworthy. And in that unworthiness, we will
Hmm.
actually deny ourselves from feeling blessings. And so that would make sense to tie it to Jesus. If we feel shame against him, he's just going to offer shame with us. If I understood
So
your question.
I think I do track with what you're saying, because when I think of shame, I don't think about, I do think of rejection. I think we feel shame because we think that there's a reason for people around us to reject us or not accept us. So I'm with you there.
Comes down to that judgment, right? And that's why we're
Mhm.
cautioned, don't judge.
Hmm.
Judge not. When we judge
Okay.
others, we're actually judging something within ourselves that we know.
But do you think that there is ever a good reason for shame? Like, I remember when I first started teaching in the high schools in Philadelphia, it's the wildest thing, because I was teaching with an organization that was going into the schools talking about abstinence, practicing abstinence until marriage. And that's the furthest thing from my lifestyle now. But I remember when I went into the schools teaching about that, there was an art teacher, because I had this very puritanical idea of morality, Christian morality at the time. And it was a Black woman. She was an art teacher. I forget her name, but she was so forthright. She said to me, you know, the stuff that you're in here talking to these kids about, it's not right. I'm like, I'm talking about ethics and morality and having good character. And that it was character education, but we were using that to sneak abstinence education into the schools under a grant from George Bush II, Jr. And so she said, what you're teaching these kids is not right. I said, what you mean? Because I was sort of talking about the way it, quote unquote, used to be, like how moral a certain generation was, and we kind of need to get back to, you know, something like that. She said, look, when I was a kid, when somebody would get pregnant, she grew up in Philadelphia. So she was a Black woman in the 60s in Philadelphia. She said, I grew up as a teen in Philadelphia. And I remember when a girl would get pregnant, they would send her down south to live with her kinfolk. And she would come back up without the baby. So nobody saw her grow, nobody saw her get big. She would just go visit her kinfolk. That's all they told people. She was visiting her folk down south. And then she would come back up. And then the kid would stay down south so that she never had to deal with the shame. And the idea was there was such a thing as, quote unquote, good shame, where the community would shame you for getting pregnant out of wedlock. And then based on that, you were trying to root out the shameful behavior of having sex out of marriage. And it got me thinking about, is there such a thing as good shame? So I said all that just to bring it back to you and ask the question, do you think there is such a thing? Like if people tried to shame vaccine deniers, or think of any kind of way that we try to shame one another today. Is there such a thing as good shame? What do you think?
Golly, these are great questions. And it's interesting. I saw someone bring something like that up earlier about how shame is a great way to correct. So I know there's people that, like you said, there's a tendency to shame one another. But as a follower of Jesus,
Mm.
could there be a good part of shame? We learn different lessons, that's for sure.
Mm. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. can I make it just a little more difficult for you as a follower of Jesus? Because I really want to hear what you're going to say, but if there is such a thing as good shame, it seems that the goodness comes not in the shame, but what the shame is intended to produce. If you shame somebody for getting pregnant out of wedlock, the idea is you're trying to have your society function in a way that people don't repeat what you think is a mistake, right? So shame, if there is such a thing as good shame, it's sort of supposed to be preventative or corrective for the behavior that you want. But if Jesus says, if you're ashamed of me before man, I'm going to be ashamed of you before the Father, the question would be, what good can come of that shame? That shame seems punitive, not corrective. What good could come out of Jesus being ashamed of people who had the nerve to be ashamed of him?
The answer that comes to my mind is my symbology, the symbols I use. For me, Jesus is love. God is the truth. And if we shame love, the love that we experience, we'll find ourselves separated from the truth.
If we shame the love that we experience, and love is truth, we'll find ourselves separated from the truth. I get that, but once again, there's nothing redemptive about that. There's nothing corrective. There's nothing. If Jesus says, no, because it's one thing to say the natural result of being ashamed of Jesus is you just end up being separated from him. But he doesn't say that's a natural result. It's not a passive thing. He's actively going to give tit for tat and be ashamed of people who were ashamed of him. At least that's what the plain reading of the text says.
Could he be just pointing out the order, that this is the order of your existence? If you shame against me and what I say, right, commandment to love, well, then you will find yourself if he's my view, he's like the high priest there with the Father, right? Kind of the ambassador between the heaven and here. Well, the Father works all around, but the Spirit is within. And so the true benefit, I think, from shame, when we truly feel shame and we truly come to terms with what we've done, regardless what the world around us says, we repent, we change.
I wish what you're saying sounds so compassionate and sounds so like how could you blame God for that? We did it. We were ashamed, and this just sort of. But he doesn't say that. As a matter of fact, earlier I tied it into another passage where Jesus says he's actually going to say to people who did great works in his name, who cast out demons, he's actually going to say to them, I never knew you, which I'm willing to say that might actually be his version of I'm ashamed of you. You were ashamed of me. I'm going to tell my Father, even though we were rocking together, because you had to have some kind of connection to cast out demons in my name. Because think about the stories the Bible tells. This is why I say the religions that tell stories and have written books are worse, because they're easier to see the falsity. Think about the stories the Bible tells, right? In one story, you have people in the New Testament going around trying to cast out demons in Jesus' name. And the demons respond and they say, yo, I know Paul, I know Jesus, but I don't know you, the sons of Sceva, right? I think it's in Acts maybe. I know Paul, I know Jesus, I don't know you. And the demons tear the person up. So it's not like you can not have a relationship with Jesus and still cast out demons. If you're casting out demons, you have to have a relationship with them, because otherwise the demons will tear you apart like they did the sons of Sceva. So now you've got people that had a relationship with Jesus enough to cast out demons. And then Jesus is going to say to some of those, I never knew you. which means he's going to deny the relationship that they were in a better position than the sons of Sceva, and they're still going to get denied. And then elsewhere, Jesus says, hey, look, I'm telling you, if you're ashamed of me before man, I'm going to find some kind of way or reason to deny and be ashamed of you before the Father. So once again, I'm just saying that all that to say, it seems like a very active, not this is the natural result of you denying me or being ashamed of me. This is tit for tat.
I can see that. There are consequences. We live in a realm of cause and effect. And so everything has a consequence. And the thought came to me about that question you're asking. I love these. I really enjoy what you're hosting and sharing. Man. Thank you. That question of how could that be the relationship with Jesus in order to cast out demons and to say, you never knew me. The only thing that can make sense to me is that the casting out the demon is actually for the possessed. It's a blessing for the possessed. And the other, right, using the words was just a vessel for the miracle, right? A cause to get the effect that Jesus wanted or God wants, the Father wants. That'd be my guess.
I hear you. I appreciate you just trying to work through what's being presented. And I'm not trying to, like, sometimes people say, Brady, you're twisting the scripture. I'm just taking what it says at the plain reading, sometimes without the theology. The theology is trying to square some of these circles. And I'm like, no, if the circle can't be squared, can we just look at it for what it is and just be honest with what that seems to mean? And so that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be, manipulative or anything like that with it.
No, I get it. These are great questions. There's my interpretation and my experience, though, along these lines of, I think this is the answer, the cause and effect. Jesus, he demonstrated and he taught us and showed us the true natural order. And the true natural order for us as men and women, it's divine. It's actually magical.
Now, I just remembered something when you were talking. Your idea sort of theism, though, is not that there's what the Christian, maybe the Reformed Christian would call the creator-creature distinction. Like that God is other, created the world and even us, but we're not the same. Your view is that there really is no creator-creature distinction when it's all said and done. Like we're sort of part of the same entity, which that's where the Christian mysticism comes in.
Yes. I don't remember exactly where, but in the writings of Paul, some of his things described it beautifully. We are walking with and through and within God's essence. We are that which is.
In him we live and move and have our being. And he's actually quoting the poets of the people on Mars Hill. These I think they may be Greeks or on Mars Hill. He's quoting them. Which is
beautiful.
Wild, right?
Okay. All right. So he was using that to relate to the other folks. Yeah. It hit home for me. It really did. Because I feel it describes that. As Jesus said, he was one with the Father. We have the power of mind. What we believe becomes our subjective reality, right? So why not believe that the Father is with me and I am with the Father?
And I get that. My question to that would be, but if that's how we get down, that could be used for any belief. Like, why not why choose that belief over any other potential belief?
Well, admittedly, where I've come, it's kind of a collection of many. I mean, I looked at the various religions throughout history and kind of looking at the similarities and separations. It was through looking into the Eastern philosophies of non-duality. That's what actually really helped me better understand what I think Jesus was trying to say.
So yours was like a process of elimination, right? Going through the different world religions and not being able to eliminate Jesus like you could some of the others.
My testimony, Christianity and Jesus was the last place I wanted to be right, because I had a sour taste.
But Jack, you may have missed it early on. I talked about this, right? If Jesus and or his biographers thought ahead of time and said, there's some embarrassment that comes along with this thing. We've got prophecies that weren't fulfilled. Jesus even made some that he didn't keep about returning during the lifetime of his disciples. I mean, they didn't know about the science and the history part. They just knew what they knew. How much more today do we know about all the things that you could get embarrassed by in the Bible? So what I said a little while ago before you jumped on was progressive Christians, because I think Christian mysticism could be seen as a form of progressive Christianity. But what progressive Christianity tries to do is it tries to eliminate all of the reasons to be embarrassed. And so maybe you shave off Genesis 1 through 3, or maybe you go further and shave off Genesis 1 through 11. Maybe you shave off the Exodus and you just shave off more and more and more. But you have this mantra in your mind of, as long as I hold on to Jesus, but you're still shaving off bit by bit all the embarrassing parts. And I would submit to you this idea for consideration. And I think the average Christian, evangelical and otherwise, would probably agree with me when they hear your version of Christianity. They would say that you're guilty of shaving off all of the things that are either embarrassing by design or by default. And that's the only reason why you're able to keep the Jesus that you have, is because you've got rid of the other stuff that probably would make you say, oh, I don't believe that part, or I don't take that part literally. That's the kind of Christianity that you are able to embrace. Is there any truth to that, maybe, or no?
It's regarding how I'm received by other Christians. Yes, I'm criticized and disagreed with by many. And I don't feel like I negate or overlook any parts of the Bible. There are parts that I don't claim to fully understand. I admit, I don't claim to know it all for sure. But my interpretation of it is, your question was perfect. The shame. You were asking about shame, right? Even in the stories of the Bible, there's people that experience all sorts of things. Well, it's no different now than it was then. What I mentioned earlier, a positive aspect of shame is when we do recognize it, we want to get rid of it. And that creates our repentance. So it's through our self-correction and correction that we grow. And I'm convinced that the purpose of our life is to grow into the likeness of Christ, of Jesus, to live with love.
I would not have as much issue if the Jesus that I read about does not have these punitive measures for the people that never grow into that love.
Yeah.
Okay. Like he could be much more like my guy was just on. I don't know if you saw earlier. My guy Mo called in, right? Did you see when Mo was on the airplane and called in? So Mo called in. He's flying back from the Bahamas, and he's got his daughter beside him, and he's talking about how he's got 7 kids. 6 of them he's raised to be Christians, and then he became an atheist. Then one of his youngest ones, who was beside him, she was just in the Bahamas at a cheerleading event they're flying back from. And he said, even while they were in the Bahamas, because I asked him, I said, yo, now that you're not a Christian anymore, how do you correct and build the kind of character in this daughter who's beside you now that you're no longer using the Bible to do it? And he started talking about how he was doing that. But even in that, though, the idea of, he said, we just came back from the Bahamas, and at this cheerleading event, she did something that he actually had to pull her aside and correct her. And he wasn't able to use the Christian stuff because he doesn't believe that anymore, but he still had to find a way to correct her. I would respect a God and a religion where the God had corrective measures, not just punitive measures. So even if we weren't becoming like the Jesus that you think that we're supposed to be like, why hell? Why I never knew you? Why go to the hell that was made for the Satan and his angels? Why that and not, oh, like Mo just pulled his daughter to the side and with these corrective measures. So any God who can't manage to do what we do with our own earthly children, but wants to be known as our Heavenly Father, to me just smacks of, this comes from a time where people did not have the kind of ethic that we had about raising children. And so they can call God Father because that's how they saw parenting at that time, which just tells me, oh, so then this is a time-locked product. This isn't the product of an eternal mind, an eternal God. This is a time-locked product. And the God is the God of the religion is one of those products until somebody's able to help me see him differently.
These are great points. Again, it's my view that the interpretations of the writings have been distorted, right? Particularly to support the hierarchy of the church, because as long as you have hierarchy, then you can believe in punishment. But if we're one with God, I trust God doesn't want us to be punished. God wants us to be correct. And that's what you were saying with the Father, right?
Yeah. Jack, I mean, once again, your heart is, I'm so with you, but I hope you realize though, what you're doing is you're reinventing Jesus in your much better image. You have a much better image of God than what the Bible presents, and you're recreating Jesus in your image as opposed to being made in his image. And I like your Jesus.
I respect it. I appreciate that. What I'm honestly trying to do is redefine what it means to be a Christian. That's what I'm really hoping to do.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate talking with you. Feel free, man. Anytime to call in and check in and we can chop it up, bro.
Yeah. I'm going to bounce out, and sincerely, thank you. I love the conversation, what you do. Blessings.
Have a great one. Much love to you, man. All right. We are pulling up on 2 hours. Had one theist and 2 atheists call. Oh, so here's what I'd like. If anybody can help out with this. Sometimes I get back on at the end of the call or end of the night sometimes and put timestamps to the video. Like I'll say first caller, theist, second caller, atheist, third caller. I'll put those timestamps. All I do is I just, put the time signature and the little dash. And you can look at some of the past videos and see what I've done. If anybody wants to volunteer, I've had people do that in the past to just go back to behind some of these videos and just put the timestamps. And I can take yours. I'll either pin yours or I'll take it and repost it. I may just pin yours so that people can see the timestamps that'll help them to go through a 2 to 4 hour video and know where they want to go. I would appreciate that. If not, I will probably get to it eventually, but sometimes they slip through the cracks. So I appreciate that. Or maybe even if you're watching, you could be watching and saying, hey, at 1 hour and 20 minutes, a theist call. That way, that'll help you to do the timestamps. It'll be maybe easier that way. Anybody who's willing to help doing that, I appreciate it. Oh, I need to say this. So I told you all that this month that we were going to be reading through Anthony Flew, the philosopher who was one of the most outspoken atheists during the 20th century, who became a theist of sorts in I think the early 2000s, maybe. I said we were going to read through his book called There Is a God. I have bought it. I have begun reading it, but I need to make a change. We're not going to do that this month. We're going to do the book club on that next month instead of doing it this month. The reason why, I've got some exciting news that I can't really share all of yet, but I got a message from somebody on my messenger in Facebook who was a pretty integral part of a evangelistic ministry that most of you all know. And this person has deconverted and wrote a book about their deconversion, their reasons for deconverting. And they've asked me and several other people to read their book to make sure that they're covering all the things they need to cover, saying it right, this, that, and the third. And I told them it would be an honor for me to read this. I had one stipulation that if I read through this book for you and give you some feedback, then you come on Ichabod and do a Life After Faith episode. And he was excited and honored, like, yo, are you serious? Like, yo, we can definitely do that. So I'm going to spend this month reading through this book of this recent deconvert, and hopefully he'll be back. He'll be on Ichabod in the coming months, and then we'll do Anthony Flu's book next month. So I'll talk about that more and more because I know everybody's not going to see this message. But so if you have bought the book, we are still going to go through it, just not in May. All right. And Jack, hey, thank you, man, for the super chat. I truly enjoyed the time, and I hope you have an amazing evening. Blessings to Ichabod viewers and chat. Hey, appreciate you, man. Really, really do appreciate you. All right, so we're past 2 hours. No more theists are calling. A lot of good stuff that I'm going to be clipping, and maybe my friend who's helping me to clip these episodes, she was in the chat as well, so she heard some stuff to clip, so we can start getting some shorts out to give you all some things to share with your peoples on the web. But I'm gonna go and enjoy the rest of mine. All praise to Norway in Reason's name, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Love you guys. Peace.